So let's all welcome Jonas Cain!
Thank you so much. Oh, before we begin, we have a question in the front row. Yes.
Hey, I'm serious. Are you really going to do magic? Because if you can you make the rest of the afternoon disappear?
That's a very good question. Unfortunately, I don't take requests, but thank you very much. Thank you very much for asking. There's a rule in magic. You're never supposed to do the same trick twice for the same audience. You know why that is, right?
We'll figure it out.
Because they're going to figure it out, right? You've already seen it. This is not going to be a surprise. However, there is a loophole, and this is a loophole. If the rule is that I can't do it again, well, we just have Mike do it. Mike, you're going to hold on to the handkerchief, one hand on each side. Just pull it nice and tight. Now take, let go with your right hand. Hold up high so everyone can see. Alright, turn and face everyone. Do the little magic wave with the...
Make noise.
It's a different kind of magic wave. We could go on the road. Mike and I are going on the road. It's Magic Jonas and Magic Mike. It's going to be a great show. When all the cards disappeared, everyone was so amazed that everyone said, "Hey!" Just held the big hand. Isn't this fun? We should do this every Thursday. What are you folks doing next Thursday?
This time we're at the bar.
You're going to be at the bar.
Thursday, Friday.
I like you. Why do trees make such great detectives? They can get to the root of the problem. Absurd jokes.
Absurd dad jokes.
Are you a dad?
Yeah.
You can use these. Typical guy. Look, just right here. Are you happy with this page?
Yep.
All right. The bookmark goes in. Look at the very first word on the page, but don't tell us what it is. You see what it is?
Yep.
If I ask you later, you'll be able to tell us.
Hopefully.
You have a good memory. You may hold on to the book.
You can write it down.
Yep.
Inside my pocket, I have a piece of paper with a word written down. Mike number 2. Is it possible that the piece of paper in my pocket has your word written on it? Is it possible?
It is possible.
I like that anything is possible when we work our magic, right? I like the way you think. As soon as you say the word, I'm going to pull the piece of paper out. As soon as you say the word, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to show everyone your word. Are you ready? What is your word?
Eat.
Eat. On this piece of paper that was inside my pocket, there is a word written down. Please tell everyone, Mike, what is that word?
Eat.
Give him a nice big hand. You see, it's easy to be confident when there's no possible way to fail. Well, actually, this isn't a bridge copy, so I guess it wasn't possible. But it was highly unlikely that we would fail. Here's the thing, though. I know that you probably thought I meant there would be one piece of paper with one word written down. The problem, though, but what I said was true, right? I said there would be a piece of paper in my pocket. I didn't lie. It's just that we interpret it a little bit differently, right? But for those of you who did think there would just be one piece of paper and one word, in the back of the book here, there's a special piece of paper. On one side is a little picture of me. And on the other side there's a word written down. What was your word again?
Eat.
Eat. Wow.
That's amazing.
You see, in order to do this sort of thing, we really need to have a good imagination. Because really, when we're trying to experience magic, we're asking people to experience things that really aren't possible. Because if it was possible, it wouldn't be magic, right? So we really have to be able to see things that other people can't see. Who here has a good imagination? By show of hands, who has a good imagination? No one. No one at all. All right, well, let's...
Ricoh's taking it away from us.
Is it-
He's gonna be really creative.
Sherry has a great imagination.
Is that you have a good imagination?
Let's hear it for Sherry.
Pick on Fran.
I'm just going to drop my hand along the cards. Wherever you say stop, that's going to become your card. Just say stop at each point you like.
Stop.
Right there, take a look. Don't tell me what it is.
Okay.
I'll show the people around you as well. All right.
Okay.
And we'll let you hold out your hand. Now watch. At no point do my hands leave my arms. Put your other hand outside here. Remember those giant-sized cards we had a moment ago?
Yes.
I have another one right here. Your card. You think it's on here?
It probably is.
It probably
Pretty good.
Right now we realize.
Yeah, because you're pretty
I
good.
am. Thank you, I appreciate it. Can I get that in writing? I'm going to show you, yes or no, loud voice, is your card on here, yes or no?
It is on here.
It is! Give her a nice big hand! Yay! We were talking earlier about how it's easy to be confident when there's no way to fail. This way, there really is no way to fail. Because every card is printed on this card. What card did you, it's okay if you say it, what was your card?
Two of hearts.
The Two of Hearts. Right there, Two of Hearts. If you didn't see the Two of Hearts, this would not have worked. How many twos are in a deck of cards?
Four.
Four, right? There's four. I'm interested to know how many twos are in that deck. Please turn the deck face up and count how many twos you find in the deck.
Okay, how did he do this?
They're all what?
They're blank. There's no.
Let's not show it. Now remember, you, as soon as you looked at a card, you took the cards from my hand. At no point did my hands leave my arms, meaning Sherry really does have a wonderful imagination.
And I am what? Amazing.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. You did a great job.
That was pretty good.
Seeing things that aren't even there.
I've done that before.
That's because you're usually at the bar right now. We did the roll. We can do the columns too. 58 and 12 and 6 and 3. That's 79. 2 and 7 is 9. 9 and 9 is 18. 18 plus 61 is
79.
11 and 59 and 4 and 5 is 8, 1, 60 and 10 is
81.
You guys are very great. Specifically, as Sherry said, I've been practicing magic now for well over 20 years. And what I've come to understand is that what makes for a successful magic show has less to do with card tricks. It has less to do with things like sleight of hand. And it has much more to do with being able to manage to get along with other people. You see, every time I walk out on stage, every time I walk to the front of a conference room, I'm walking into a situation where I have to work with people that I've never met before. And I have to learn very quickly how to either get them on my side or at the very least align myself with their side so we can have a successful outcome. One of my favorite quotes comes from President Theodore Roosevelt. He said the most important single ingredient for the formula of success is knowing how to get along with people. And really, that's, I'm sure in your experience in sales, and certainly my experience in magic, this really is the case, because I could be the best magician technically, but if I haven't demonstrated genuine care and mutual respect and understanding, well, no one's going to care if I can find your card or not, right? So the real secret to magic is really learning how to work together as one. And but there are some barriers to the common ground that I'd like to go over, because perhaps you've experienced these when working with customers, working with each other maybe, or even working at home. The first barrier is the assumption barrier. Well, this one says, I already know how others feel, I know what they know, I know what they want. It's the assumption. The arrogance barrier, this is the one that says, oh, I just don't need to know what other people know. I don't need to know how they feel. I don't need to know what they want. The third barrier is the indifference one. This one says, I just don't care. Yeah. I don't need to know. I don't care. Lastly, number 4, this one is about the self. This one says, it's control. I don't want other people to know what I know. I don't want them to know how I feel. And I don't want them to know what I think. So to help us overcome these barriers, one of my mentors is a man named John Maxwell, and he's identified 8 different ways that we can overcome these barriers. For our purposes, I'm just going to talk about 4 of them. The first one is to ask questions. This one says, I will be interested enough in others to ask questions. Now this involves not just asking questions, but listening to what the answer is. But beyond asking other people questions, it also involves asking ourselves questions. Questions like, do I feel what you feel? Before asking, do you know what I feel? Do you see what I see? Before asking, do I see what you see? Before asking, do you see what I see? Do I know what you know? Before asking, do you know what I know? And lastly, do I know what you want? Before asking if you know what I want. So asking good questions is a great way to break down the barrier. Number 2, this one's kind of a controversial one. This is be likable. It's controversial, but it does have some truth to it. There was a former communications consultant to presidents, a man named Roger Ailes. He says that if people like you, they're going to listen to you. If people don't like you, they're not going to listen to you. So being likable is a great way to start that common ground, but there's a fine line between trying to be likable to create connection for a worthy cause versus seeking to be likable for approval addiction. There is a fine line there, but I believe when it comes from a place of good intent, then it's going to help us break down that barrier. Number 3 is to be humble. Some people see humility as a weakness, but really, some of my favorite thoughts on this comes from a poet named Alan Ross. He says that humility means knowing and using our strengths for the benefit of others on behalf of a higher purpose. He says that people who are humble, they don't think less of themselves, but rather they simply choose instead to consider the needs of others in fulfilling that higher purpose and worthy cause. All right, last one. Be adaptable. Now we saw it in the example with the magic square. Just looking at it one way, we only see 79 once. But being adaptable, being able to see things from another person's worldview, being able to see that maybe some people, maybe they're rogue people. To summarize this idea of meeting each other on common ground, there's a fun principle. Perhaps you've heard it. It's called the 101% principle. And applying this is a great strategy no matter where we are. This is when we just find the 1% of where our values and our beliefs and our goals align. So that 1%, find that 1% and then give it 100% of your effort. Sherry's going to leave the room. She's going to leave the room. And what's your name? Oh, yeah. What's your name? June?
Yeah.
All right. To make sure that this is on the up and up, to make sure Sherry isn't cheating, June is going to make sure that when Sherry's out of the room, she's not peeking in, that she's not trying to listen in. Right, so you're going to be sort of the bodyguard, all right? And let's see, well, since you're here, Max, right? Max, you're going to be the person to choose an object. So now it's important that you don't say what it is, because she might hear. It's important that you don't pick it up, because then when she comes back in the room, she might have seen that it was moved. So you're just going to point to one of the objects to make sure as many people can see which one it is. And then take your hand away so when she comes back in, she can't see. Make sense? We're setting up these rules to make it difficult for Sherry. Alright, so Sherry, you may leave the room.
But black.
You're going to be the bodyguard.
Max, make it easy for me. Alright, okay, we'll go with
So whenever you're ready. Everyone see that, or as many? Okay, good. All right. No one give her any clues. No clues. She has to use her psychic magic powers.
What he doesn't, what Jonas doesn't know, is that we all have a connection here.
This part of the joke.
No, because I'm trying to get a vibe from it. Come on, Max, we worked together for 20 years. All right. This.
So depending on the inflection, so words itself really mean very little. At the study that was done at UCLA, it says that there's three things to communicating. There's the words, coming back already. There's the tone of voice or the inflection. It's where we put our emphasis. But then there's also the body language. So it really comes down to the words, how we say it, and then what people see as well. And there's really three components to this. There's of course our thoughts, there's our emotions, and then there's our actions. So that's connecting emotionally, intellectually, and visually. And if we fail to keep these three different components in mind, then they can lead to a disconnect. For example, if we try to communicate something that we personally don't feel, then our communication becomes dispassionate. If we fail to communicate something we know but do not do, our communication becomes theoretical. If we try to communicate something we feel but do not know, our communication is also theoretical. If we communicate something we feel but don't do, our communication is hypocritical. If we try to communicate something that we do but do not know, our communication is presumptuous. And if we try to communicate something we do but do not feel, well, our communication becomes mechanical. But this has been a great time. I had a wonderful time sharing today with all of you. I'm going to leave you with one final piece of encouragement other than the website. And this is something very important. This is the lemon. Where's the vodka? Because when life gives us lemons, add vodka, right? But this is the encouragement I like to leave. This is one of my favorite messages. It's that whatever our lemon is, whether it's complacency or just not caring or indifference, whether it's strife of any kind, instead of running away from it, we cut to the very core and get to the very center, because in the middle we'll find something that we didn't think we'd find there. In this case, it's a fortune in the form of a playing card. Oh, Sherry chose a card earlier. What was your card? Two of Hearts. The Two of Hearts. Are you sure it wasn't the Five of Hearts? Oh, thank goodness, this is the Two of Hearts.
Wow.
Oh, really?